Welcome back. Let's talk about a binding price ceiling. Ceilings are something above you, right? If a ceiling prevents you from going up to equilibrium, it is binding. If a ceiling is set above equilibrium, no worries, it's non-binding. You're not trying to go above equilibrium. If you're trying to get to equilibrium and there's a binding price ceiling, it's going to look like this. Here's our market at equilibrium. But anytime we have government policy, it's a market intervention. We're going to get into disequilibrium. So let's put a binding price ceiling. Easy to say, harder to write, right? A binding price ceiling, we no longer have this spot right here. We can't get up to there because we have this binding price ceiling. Keep in mind this equilibrium is like a magnet. It's pulling everything towards it. We can't get up there, so we have disequilibrium, meaning we have quantity demanded there and quantity supplied here. So why do we have a higher quantity demanded? Why do we go from here to there? Well, our price maximum, meaning you can't charge more than this, is lower than where the market is. So that means people are going to want more of it because it's less expensive. So your quantity demanded is going to exceed your quantity supplied. Now look at supply. If you're a supplier, you want to get the most amount of money, the market value you can for your good or service. And here, a government intervention is saying, no, you can't charge that. So you're going to decrease your supply back to here because at that price, this is how much you're willing to supply based on your supply schedule graphically represented by the supply curve. So your supply goes this way, their demand goes that way. We have quantity demanded exceeds supply. And when demands exceed supply, we have something called a shortage. And when you have a shortage, you don't have enough of something. So what's the example here? Well, the example of a binding price ceiling would be rent control in a lot of our more populated cities. Let's take New York City, maybe Manhattan in particular. Manhattan's an island. A lot of people want to live in New York and Manhattan, but they don't make enough money. That's God's way of saying you should live in Connecticut. So if you can't afford to live there, you're not going to do it. But if a politician came along and said, hey, I think your rent's too high, it's $3,000 a month for like a coat closet, I'll cut that to $1,500 a month if you elect me. Yeah, you're going to do that. But there's also a problem. Let's say there's a 12-story apartment building, and the first 6 stories can be apartments or office space, and the next 6 stories can be just apartments, like legally. If you could get the $3,000 a month if you're a landlord without being subject to rent control on the first 6 stories because you could convert them to office space, you'll just do that. You'll take away supply of apartments. Now, the upper floors, you're stuck with apartments. But when the dishwasher breaks, do you fix it? No. When the fire escape gets a little rusty, do you paint it? No. Do you clean and paint between tenants? No, you don't. And in fact, the quality of housing actually goes down because the incentives are there. If I'm a landlord and I'm supposed to be getting $3,000 a month and I'm only getting $1,500 a month, I'm not very happy. So I reduce my supply as much as I can, and whatever I have left, I do supply, but I do not supply it at a higher quality. So rent control actually enhances in a place like New York, who already has shortages of housing because quite frankly, it's an island. You can't build left, you can't build right, you can only build up, and that's expensive. It's a shortage of housing. So there's already not enough supply. Well, look at that. Rent control actually made it worse, but you do it because, well, the politician said he'd, lower your rent. So we're all suckers for that one. It kind of goes back to grade school when you had the one person running for student body president who said they could get you pizza for lunch every day. Yeah, that's basically what politicians do these days. Keep in mind, kids at home, it's not the left versus the right, it's the state versus you. Remember, people respond to incentives. If you're a landlord, you're going to move to the left. If you are a renter, you're going to move to the right. You don't have equilibrium where quantity supplied equals quantity demanded. You have demand that exceeds supply, so you have a shortage. And that wraps up our quick look at a binding price ceiling.